Have you ever noticed that when someone genuinely talented makes a small mistake in front of you, you somehow end up liking them more instead of less? And have you ever noticed that when someone who is only average makes that exact same small mistake, it usually makes you like them less instead? Is that just a coincidence? Or is there an actual, scientific reason your brain reacts this way? And if there really is a reason behind it, could a person actually use this knowledge on purpose to become more likable themselves? Psychologists actually have a name for this exact pattern, and this is called the Pratfall Effect. In simple terms, this effect describes the surprising way a small mistake can raise how likable a highly competent person seems to others, while that same small mistake can lower how likable an average person seems to those same people, even though the mistake itself is identical in both cases. According to this research, trying to appear completely flawless in front of other people may not actually be the best way to be liked. In certain situations, the effect suggests the opposite strategy works better instead. By the end of this video, you will learn exactly why this effect happens, and how you might be able to apply the Pratfall effect in your own life, without it accidentally backfiring on you. To understand the Pratfall effect properly, the best place to start is with the actual experiment itself, the one that first uncovered this effect back in 1966. In 1996, a psychologist named Elliot Aronson and his two colleagues who were named Benoit Lerman and Joan Floyd worked together and designed an experiment. The purpose of this experiment was to test a common belief, to see if people would like a flawless person who does not make any mistakes more than a person who makes blunders and has flaws. They wanted to find out whether making a small, harmless mistake in front of other people could actually change how likable that person seemed, and whether the answer to that question depended on how competent the person already appeared to be. In order to conduct this experiment properly, the researchers needed real participants, and they needed a controlled situation where they could change only one thing at a time, while keeping everything else exactly the same. And thus they recruited a group of male college students from the University of Minnesota to take part in the study. In the experiment, each of these students were asked to listen to an audio tape recording which sounded like a real interview, which was styled after a quiz show that was popular at the time, called the College Bowl. On the audio tape, a contestant was asked a series of difficult questions, one after another. The researchers had actually created two very different versions of this contestant, and each participant only ever heard one of the two versions, without knowing the other version existed at all. In one version, the contestant performed extremely well, correctly answering 92% of the difficult questions asked of him. In the other version, the same contestant performed only moderately well, correctly answering just 30% of the questions. The differences did not stop there. After the quiz portion of the tape, the contestant was asked to describe his background. In the highly successful version, the contestant described an impressive high school career, filled with strong grades and meaningful achievements, both inside and outside the classroom. In the average version, the same contestant described a much more ordinary high school experience, with average grades and very little involvement in extracurricular activities. So far, this created two clearly different contestants, one who seemed highly competent and accomplished, and one who seemed fairly average and unremarkable. But the researchers were not finished setting up the experiment yet. This is the part where the actual pratfall comes in. For each of these two versions, the highly competent version and the average version, the researchers created a second variation. In one variation, nothing unusual happened at the end of the recording. In the other variation, right near the end of the tape, listeners heard the clear sound of a chair scraping, followed by the contestant's own voice saying that he had just spilled a cup of coffee all over his suit and apologizing for the mess. This entire blunder lasted only a few seconds on the recording. By combining these two factors together, how competent the contestant seemed, and whether or not he spilled the coffee, the researchers ended up with four separate versions of the exact same basic recording. A highly competent contestant with no blunder. A highly competent contestant who spills coffee. An average contestant with no blunder. And an average contestant who spills coffee. Each participant in the study was only given one of these four versions to listen to, and afterward, every participant was asked to rate how much they personally liked the contestant they had just heard. What the results showed was genuinely surprising, and this is the central finding the entire Pratfall effect is built around. Among the participants who listened to the highly competent contestant, the ones who heard him spill the coffee rated him as more likable than the ones who heard the version when nothing went wrong. In other words, spilling the coffee actually made the highly competent contestant seem more attractive as a person, instead of lowering their impression. But among the participants who listened to the average, unremarkable contestant, the exact opposite happened. The ones who heard him spill the coffee rated him as less likable than the ones who heard the version where nothing went wrong. For this contestant, the very same small mistake made him seem even less appealing than before. So the identical blunder, the exact same few seconds of spilled coffee, produced two completely opposite effects, depending entirely on how competent the listener already believed the contestant to be. Why would the same small mistake work in such opposite directions? According to Aronson, Will Lerman, and Floyd, the explanation has to do with how we naturally perceive people who seem unusually capable or accomplished. A person who appears highly competent at everything can start to feel almost superhuman to the people around them, and because of this, they can also start to feel distant, unrelatable, and hard to connect with on a personal level. According to the researchers, a small, harmless blunder works to break down that sense of distance. It reminds everyone listening that this impressive person is still an ordinary human being underneath all of that competence, capable of clumsy, everyday mistakes just like anyone else. This humanizing effect, according to the researchers, is what actually made the highly competent contestant seem more likable after the coffee spill, rather than less. For the average contestant, this same explanation works in reverse. Because this contestant was never seen as unusually impressive or distant to begin with, there was no sense of superhuman distance for the blunder to break down. Instead, according to the researchers, the coffee spill simply added one more small negative detail on top of an already unremarkable impression, making the overall impression slightly worse rather than better. This finding did not stay untested after 1966. In 1970, a separate group of researchers, Robert Helmrich, Elliot Aronson himself, and John LaFan, ran a similar experiment using a larger group of 120 male undergraduate students. Their results confirmed the same basic pattern that Aronson, Will Lerman, and Floyd had originally found years earlier, giving later researchers more confidence that this effect was real, and not simply a one-time fluke limited to a single group of participants. Over the years since 1966, other researchers have studied exactly when this effect works, when it does not work, and when it can actually backfire. Understanding these boundaries is what turns this from an interesting fact into something a person could genuinely use in their own life. The first and most important boundary has to do with timing. According to the original research by Aronson, Will Lerman, and Floyd, the Pratfall Effect only helps a person if their competence has already been clearly demonstrated first. In the original experiment, listeners heard the contestant perform extremely well on the quiz before they ever heard him spill the coffee. If the order had been reversed, if listeners had heard the blunder before ever learning how capable the contestant actually was, there would have been nothing yet to humanize, and no established competence for the mistake to contrast against. In simple terms, competence needs to come first, and the small mistake needs to come second, not the other way around. The second boundary has to do with how serious the mistake actually is. In 1972, researchers named Metti and Wilkins ran a study specifically to test how the size of a blunder affects this whole pattern. They found that minor mistakes, small, harmless slips like spilling a drink, barely lowered how much respect a competent person received, while still meaningfully increasing how likable that person seemed. Larger, more embarrassing blunders, according to their research, could actually increase likability even further, though they did lower respect somewhat more than a minor mistake did. This means the size of a harmless, non-threatening mistake is not automatically dangerous, and in some cases, a bigger harmless blunder can humanize a person even more than a small one does. However, there is an important line that this research points toward, one that many people who write about this topic since have emphasized clearly. A mistake that is simply clumsy or embarrassing, something like spilling a drink or mispronouncing a word, works very differently from a mistake that calls into question the person's actual core competence or character. A skilled surgeon who trips over a chair in the break room is being humanized. A skilled surgeon who makes a careless error during an actual surgery is not being humanized at all, and the Pratfall Effect would not be expected to help in that second situation. The mistake needs to stay separate from the specific skill the person is actually known for, or the whole effect can collapse and work against the person instead. The third boundary has to do with who is doing the observing, not just who is making the mistake. In the 1970 follow-up study by Helmrich, Aronson, and LaFan, researchers also measured the self-esteem of the participants doing the rating, not just the competence of the person they were listening to. They found that participants with moderate self-esteem responded the most positively to a competent person who made a small blunder. Participants with high self-esteem were barely affected by the blunder either way. But participants with low self-esteem actually rated the competent blunderer less favorably after the mistake, not more favorably. This suggests that the Pratfall effect is not something that works identically on every single person watching. The same small mistake can land differently depending on how the observer themselves already feels about their own abilities. The fourth boundary, discussed widely by people who study this topic, concerns authenticity. A mistake that feels genuine and unplanned tends to create the humanizing effect the original research describes. But a mistake that feels staged, performed, or deliberately included to look humble on purpose tends to backfire, because people are generally quite good at sensing when someone is being insincere. In other words, deliberately manufacturing a fake blunder just to seem more relatable is not the same thing as an authentic, real mistake happening naturally, and audiences tend to respond to those two situations very differently. This effect has also been studied outside of simple face-to-face interactions. In 2012, a researcher named Danitine Gar studied something closely related in the context of marketing and product sales, sometimes referred to as the blemishing effect. This research found that when an already strong, high-quality product is described with one small, minor flaw included honestly in its description, consumers can end up trusting and preferring that product even more than an identical product described as flawless in every way. This mirrors the same basic pattern found in the original 1966 study, just applied to how people judge products instead of how they judge other people. Put all of these boundaries together, and a fairly clear picture emerges. If a person has already demonstrated real competence in something, admitting a small, harmless mistake unrelated to that specific skill can genuinely make them seem more likable and more approachable, rather than less impressive. But this same mistake needs to happen naturally, needs to stay away from the person's actual area of core competence, and should not be manufactured on purpose simply to appear humble. Used this way, according to the research, a small imperfection is not something to hide. It may actually be one of the things that makes a genuinely capable person easier to like. If you would like to see more videos like this one, please consider subscribing before you go. Subscribing simply means our next video will show up for you automatically, without you needing to go searching for it, and it also helps this channel keep growing. What do you think about the Pratfall effect? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Write down your thoughts on the comment below. And if you found this video interesting, please also consider leaving a like. It costs nothing at all, but it genuinely helps other people discover this video too. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. See you in the next one.